Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Bullony Basketball. Here today with a special guest, my guy Shayler. How's it going, my man?
What's up? I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Last time we connected on any degree, it was literally the time that we met when we were playing one on one. Yeah, it's definitely cool. I'm glad to have you on here. But today we're going to be recapping some of the second round series, talking a little bit about the draft, lottery that's coming up, and then also we got a mini game at the end. You guys know that. But starting with the second round recaps, I think we'll start with the Denver Phoenix series. You know, I feel like a lot of people were high on Phoenix this year, especially adding Kevin Durant. I think people thought talent wise they were the favorites, but of course Denver came in. They're no slouch, and they pulled off the series win in six. So I'll let you go first, and tell me like what did you see from this series on either side?
Yeah, I mean Denver one seed in the West um had, you know, had a better year than they had last year. I think Jokic kind of finally um had his system this year with MPJ pretty much fully healthy and Jamal Murray fully healthy and Aaron Gordon kind of had a leap. So I mean I watched them a decent amount during the regular season. I had a pretty good feeling about them in the postseason. But when I saw the matchup against Phoenix, um, I didn't really know what to think at first. Um, because I don't know, if you watch NBA media or you watch TV and you listen to coverage about Phoenix, I feel like Vegas TV, everybody kind of had Phoenix as the favorites all of a sudden. Um, I was listening to Kevin O'Connor and The Ringer, and they were kind of insinuating that even they kind of had the feeling that Phoenix. I mean, it seemed like everybody had Phoenix as the favorites all of a sudden. I just didn't think that they were going to be able to figure it out as far as depth, and I think that really reared its head during that series. You start looking at the seventh, eighth, ninth guys in that rotation coming off the bench, and it's Damian Lee and uh, who else were they throwing out there?
Like sometime, well, like Jock Landale had to get big minutes like later because Aiden
Yeah,
went
I
out.
like John Maxwell,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, that was a problem too because it you started to realize that the big guy that you're going to have to pay. Well, they did pay a ton of money. The Pacers signed that offer sheet, and he was a Pacer for about 2 hours.
Yeah.
So um, I don't know. They've got some problems that they're going to have to address, and those problems kind of unfolded and unraveled in the midst of that series. And I think a lot of that has to do with, the uber reliability of that Denver squad. Um, they had everything figured out. They were rolling with the same squad, throughout the regular season. They didn't make a ton of moves. They were one of those teams that felt good about where they were coming in the postseason, and Miami being another one of those teams for good or for worse.
Mm.
And that's paid off for both of those teams. Um, the rotations were pretty set in stone. Jokic being the big benefactor of that. And it's the same. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but it's the same conference finals matchup as it was in the bubble 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
It
Um,
is. Yeah.
Interesting, and I think it's LA's squad's completely different. Miami's squad is pretty different, but Denver's isn't that different. Um, Denver's actually the team out of these four that I feel the most comfortable about winning a championship. Um, Sorry, I was jumping all over the place there.
No,
Uh,
you're good. I mean, I kind of I would agree with you. I think right now Denver is the team I would have the most faith in for this year. But yeah, like just in this series, I agree with you. Like everyone was saying, Phoenix is the ultimate. It's gonna be Phoenix versus the field essentially. Like they're the top dog, and I never felt that way either. Even even like at the end of the regular season when Denver was struggling, at that point I thought it was definitely possible the Suns could beat the Nuggets, but I still didn't think that the Suns would win the championship. It just felt like it's hard to put things together. One like mid-season, even if it is Kevin Durant, who can basically fit in almost any single system you put him in. But just the fact that like they didn't have the depth, like they were starting as much as I know you said you like Jock Landale, but the fact that him and Cameron Payne had a good game 6, and also Landry Shamet, the fact that those three are starting in a playoff game, especially an elimination game, like that's not great. Like with all due respect, and I get it, like Chris Paul got injured, but at some point in time, like he's usually injured. You know what I mean? Like this is something we can expect, especially at this age. Like it's not like you can. It would be rare for Chris Paul to go a full postseason without sustaining some injury, and I feel like that's just something they're gonna have to look at now. That's why I think there's been rumors around him, obviously around Aiden with him and Monty, and that disconnect, and Monty's already been let go. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect for Phoenix, but I do think Denver. They do have probably the most consistency with like over the last few years. Like their big three has been there since like 2018. Their head coach has been there since I think like 2015, 2016 or something like that. Mike Malone. So they've had the core together for a while now. I think they're out to like prove people wrong too, because just the last few years they were injured. And people were saying like about Jokic in particular, like, oh, he can't do this, he can't do that. He's just like an MVP that can't win in the playoffs. Like that's almost I think a big reason. It was like narrative driven. Like they didn't want to give him. And I'm not saying Embiid didn't deserve the MVP this year, but it seemed like one of the biggest reasons why they felt like Jokic didn't deserve it is because he had never won a championship. And they're like, every 3-time MVP's won a championship. But like, I don't know. I think the Nuggets are out to try and prove people wrong, especially like a lot of people doubted them. I've had people that I've even had on this show saying that Denver is the fake 1 seed, like of the two, and it's just weird how it goes because the Bucks got first rounded, and now we got Denver in the conference finals. So I don't know. You got any other final thoughts before we move on here?
Yeah, I I have a gripe with the narrative driven way that this league is covered, and um, it's just like with MVPs and the discourse around Jokic is, and the takeaway that I've gathered from that is that people aren't watching Denver at 10:30 Eastern. Um, they're just not logging a ton of games on Jokic, and so um, maybe they've seen him a few times on national TV, and um, they've gathered that they think his game is an eyesore, or they don't really like that he's not jumping up and ripping down dunks. I don't know what the consensus is on Jokic, um, but maybe they see the numbers and they're like, oh, Russell Westbrook did that before.
Hmm.
But like what he's doing is pretty, I mean, unprecedented. It's pretty astounding, and
Right.
I look forward to watching him every opportunity I get. Um, and so I don't really get into the semantics about uh, personally about Jokic not deserving the MVPs that he won. I think that there was a case that he could have won MVP this year. I think Giannis had a case as well. Just strictly talking about purely basketball, I think it was it was a 3-prong race. Um, but Joel ends up, and we can go into. I know we're switching conferences, but we can go into the game that happened last night if you want to.
We
Next,
could bump to that, yeah.
Joel ends up coming away with that award, and it makes sense. Um, I think that the tide had kind of shifted, and honestly, I think people were under the assumption that there was a vendetta in the media against Joel Embiid for a while. And so it kind of just it felt like destiny that Joel was going to end up winning this MVP regardless of accolades or, analytics. Or I think if you're going to either of those things, they're going to different players. I think Joel had a great season. I think Joel can do things that Jokic can't. Um, but last night, Philly goes down in um, pretty wild fashion against Boston.
Hmm.
Come in, uh, end the first half down 5. Um, a lot of people probably went to go get something to eat, uh, turn the TV off for a little bit, come back, maybe don't even come back to it. They get an alert on their phone that Celtics are up 30, and Tatum's got 45 or something in the third quarter. Um, and the Sixers always do that. I feel like the Sixers implode, whether you love Doc Rivers or not. Um, Tends to happen to his teams in Game Sevens. Um, and I think that they should keep Doc Rivers. We can talk about that later, but um, I don't think all the responsibility goes on Doc Rivers. I think the responsibility goes on Joel Embiid and James Harden, probably more. Shocker, but uh, they implode, and when teams implode, especially in the postseason, it means that everybody is panicking.
Yeah.
And so, these are 5 human beings playing. I think we forget that sometimes. 5 human beings playing 5 other human beings. And when a team implodes, it means that they're being dominated by other human beings. They're being trash talked to. They're just being dominated. And James Harden and Joel Embiid last night were the body language was bad. I'm a big body language guy,
Mm-hmm.
and the body language is often bad for Philly. And so that's just kind of why I never really. Um, and I'm rooting for James Harden. I'm rooting for Joel because he's the MVP this year, and I'm a basketball fan. And so I typically want MVPs to go the distance and be able to prove themselves, at least within that season. But
Yeah.
Joel went 4 of 18. Uh, Harden had another ridiculously bad shooting night. I think he was 0 for a while,
Yeah.
and it's tough. I'm not really going to go on the defense on any of those guys because you don't have to. Um, but it's hard to kind of grasp, um, other than just kind of understanding maybe that the lights are bright. We've had a couple players say that in the postseason. Jared Allen literally said that in a press
Yeah.
conference recently.
Yeah.
I don't know if he is. I think you might regret that. But yeah, the lights are bright, and the arenas are loud, and the away crowds are rude. Or these are elements that James Harden has dealt with multiple times, and Joel Embiid has dealt with multiple times, and so it's a team's got to come out on top. It hasn't been Philly for a decade. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, if you would jump in on
Mm.
that.
Yeah. I think personally, like from what I saw, like I do agree with you. Like I'm not saying that I guess Doc Rivers. Um, I'm not saying maybe he's the best fit with Philadelphia because clearly, like you said, like with the body language and everything like that, part of the coach's responsibility too. I'm not saying it's solely him, and really it's more so on the players, but part of the coach's like objective is like kind of to rally everyone like on the same pace. Like, and sometimes I felt like PJ Tucker was almost given that responsibility more than like Doc Rivers or the Sixers coaching staff. And like you could even see it from, believe it was game 5 or game. I think it was game 4. Yeah, it was game 4 because they were at home and like the crowd was getting behind them too. But I mean, you could just tell like the body language and everything like that with both Harden and Embiid. It wasn't that great, but I feel like personally, like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Embiid fans because he just won MVP, and I've usually been high on him and everything like that. But I feel like this goes a lot on him, like just because if you think about Harden, like he didn't have a great game 7, right? And he's often had games like this where it's like elimination games, most critical games, and he doesn't play his best. But what you can say about Harden is that he had probably 2 of his best playoff performances, arguably ever, in this series too. Like I think he exceeded expectations for the series that you could have expected from him. I don't think anyone thought he would probably drop another 40-point playoff game ever again. And he did that twice in this series. And one of them was without Embiid, and he got them the win in the process. So that was like a huge game right there. But I don't know. I think personally, like when you look at Embiid, it never felt like he had that dominant performance. And almost in a way, it felt like after the MVP was announced that I don't know, like it just seemed like he was content with it. And you've seen some people like in the media were saying like if Embiid were to win MVP, like maybe take his foot off the gas and kind of ease up and stuff. But it kind of felt like that. And I'm not like gonna say I guess that it was that, but that's just like the feeling I got from watching it myself. And obviously like even in the first round, like Embiid struggled, Harden struggled. Like the reason they swept the Nets, like it probably would have won like maybe 5 or 6 games. They still would have won. But the reason they swept the Nets is because Tyrese Maxey played really well and Tobias Harris played really well. And in this series, they weren't as good. I think Tobias was still all right, but they weren't obviously as good in this series. And I mean, it ultimately bit him in the butt. But I guess I will ask you. I will ask you a question, just because. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with what you're saying about Doc Rivers, but I'm sure if there's people that are watching this, I'm sure some people are interested as to why you said like they should keep Doc Rivers. So I'm just curious, like why you say that.
Because I think everybody's saying that they should fire him. I think this season is it's unlike anything I've seen up to this point in my life where coaches are getting sacked after losing in the conference finals. And that's not normal. So Doc Rivers is a Hall of Fame coach. There are things that he is good at. Um, and I don't necessarily think that, and look, I'm not in the front office there. I'm not hanging out with Doc. And so I don't really know the intel that they know, and I don't know if there seriously is. I saw that there was I got a notification about James Harden saying that the relationship between him and Doc was okay, and that doesn't sound too great. I think that was an intentional choice by James to word it that way. Um, so my opinion can change, but I don't think that you're going to be able to upgrade from Doc that much unless you're able to get. I really like Nick Nurse. I really like Monty Williams, who just got fired. And Ime Udoka is already going somewhere. I don't love him necessarily as much, but I think that he's a skilled coach. So there are good coaches available. And if Philly decides, and there are coaches that exist that we don't necessarily know about or are talking about, just like there always are. There are assistants on the benches that are great. But I genuinely think that Doc is I don't know. I think that ironic that he's a good in situation coach. He was a former player, obviously. So he's typically a good player coach, even though he's much older now. But in the playoffs, that can be different. Joel's career in the playoffs has been different. I think there are a lot of factors going on in this. And I think that the fact that you have the MVP of the league, and if you have a good relationship between Doc and the MVP of the league, I don't think you should fire the coach.
Yeah.
There's a conversation with that last thing. There's a conversation with that with Budenholzer. You have the MVP of the league. If the coach and the MVP of the league have a good relationship, then you build around that. But I think that's a different situation entirely, and Budenholzer ended up getting fired as well. I don't know. It's just been I've never seen elite coaches get fired as often as we've seen. So the slope is slippery. I'm worried about I'm worried about Spoelstra. I'm worried about Mike Malone and Darvin Ham. I'm worried about all of them because it seems that um, the entire league's going to change at this rate. But
Yeah,
yeah, what are your
definitely.
opinions on that?
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I think the one thing I will say though is maybe, especially like when you bring up Harden and like
Mhm.
him saying like him and Doc Rivers, their relationship is okay. It seemed like I did listen to when he said that, like in the interview, and it did seem like maybe there was like some underlying problems there. I mean, I guess that could just be me like overanalyzing it, but at the same time, like it just felt a little bit odd. So what I will say is, you know, this summer there's a potential. Like I've seen the James Harden, Houston, like part two rumors again. I would wait to make a decision on Doc Rivers until after that time period passes, maybe, and maybe because if James Harden's gone, and if you know Doc does have a good relationship with Embiid, then you'd probably be more willing to keep him. But maybe if you know Harden's still on the team and you're going to run this duo back, maybe you'd consider a different coach or something like that. You know, I mean, Mike D'Antoni's been rumored here for a long time, ever since Harden got here. Maybe
He's
that's
eight.
the fix. I don't know if it would be or not, but maybe that's like what Daryl Morey thinks or something like that, and Elton Brand thinks. I mean, I guess yeah, that was just a thought, but I mean, we'll see. I guess what happens, but I would at least wait to make a decision on Doc until probably after that time period passes. And I'm sure
Yeah,
that's probably what they're thinking, or at least what they probably should be thinking. Um, but I don't
maybe
know.
not think about it at all. Maybe Doc is just Doc's job is say,
Yeah,
you know,
could
we're
be.
left to talk about all this stuff, but yeah, I have a good feeling that as of right now, they're not really focused on that. That Doc is the head coach of the Sixers, and they're going to move forward with that. But if they
Yeah,
don't, it'll be an interesting story to follow for sure.
yeah. No, I agree with that. But if you want, though, we can move on. We can talk about um, you know, this 6-7 seed series in the Western Conference
Mhm.
between the Golden State Warriors and the LA Lakers. uh, I
Yeah,
guess what I saw from the series, I was kind of surprised. And I guess I'll shout out my guy Clutch Talk, who's been on here, because he kept telling me, he's like, dude, it's Lakers in six. Like I know he is a Laker fan, so I can definitely see why he said that. But he's like, dude, it's Lakers in six. Like the Warriors, they just can't match up. And at points, like it kind of just felt like that. Like when AD wanted to be AD, like he had his way with Looney. He had his way with Draymond. It didn't matter who they had on him, and they really like it. Never felt like Curry had control in the series the way he has been capable of, other than maybe, um, I mean, game two they like basically blew out the Lakers. I know the game he had a 30-point triple double was great, but like his shooting touch even that game didn't feel like normal Steph Curry. But like down the stretch of game one, like it felt like he was getting on fire. So other than maybe like a couple stretches in this series, it never felt like he had his 3-point touch. The last three games of the series, Klay Thompson was definitely did not have his 3-point touch. And most of the series, Jordan Poole was kind of shut down. So, I mean, those are their 3 20-point per game scorers that are mostly known. I mean, this is the team, when you think of 3 pointers, especially over the last 5-10 years, the first team you're going to think of is the Warriors. And the fact that they're three highest volume, prolific shooters on the team as well, like all kind of had some struggles for a decent chunk or majority of the series from three. Like that's tough. You know, like you're probably not going to win much. Even though like they are really good at taking advantage of the three and then also like straight downhill. Not so much the mid range lately, but I don't know. I think it was just like it just didn't feel like a good matchup for them, honestly. Like no, it felt like Steve Kerr was trying everything he could, but ultimately like I don't know. Like he put JaMychal Green in the starting lineup. He tried Gary Payton. He tried obviously Looney to start the series.
and so
Yeah, DiVincenzo as well, who actually, I mean, he played good in game six, but it was just not working out. And you look at like these Lakers players, like Austin Reeves had a big game, and then D'Lo also had a big game, and then Rui Hachimura stepped up. Um, they just like it seems like not just in this series, but like majority of the playoff run, the Lakers have had a guy step up, like when they need it, like because LeBron is gonna play well, and really other than maybe like the last game in this series, it hasn't felt like a LeBron dominated game, like for the most part. Like that's kind of the weird thing. Like we've seen LeBron go off for like 40 points. We've seen him go off for 50 in the finals before, but like we haven't really seen him dominate too much in this playoff run. And the fact that they're still able to win pretty handily in most of these games, like AD's also had games where he's taken the night off essentially, but like Rui Hachimura is your leading scorer one night, and then Austin Reeves is another night. And then like sometimes Vanderbilt will give you good minutes. I know he kind of down the stretch of this series wasn't really used as much, but like still like that's what makes it tough, I guess, for not just the Warriors but any team, and that's why it's going to be interesting like to see how they play against Denver. But I don't know. I wouldn't say this is like the end of the Warriors dynasty because they're still going to be a good team next year. They're going to be a good team the year after that. But it's definitely going to get harder to win as time goes on as well, especially because you don't know if Draymond's going to be back. There's rumors that maybe they will trade Jordan Poole. So, and as much as people clown Draymond now, like he's such a big part to their success every single year. So I don't know. What did you see from this series though?
Yeah, I'll touch on a couple of those things about end of Warriors dynasty first. Draymond Green, he's gonna get paid this summer.
Mm.
Whether
Maybe by the Lakers.
Yeah, whether that be by the Warriors or Bob Myers or without Bob Myers, or there's a lot of variables with the Warriors. What Wojnarowski went before the game and was like leaking information about how Bob Myers might be interested in not being the executive there anymore. And I think all he's saying is he wants more power. He's one of the most respected executives in the league. I don't know if Daryl Morey had anything to do with dropping that story before the game either, but yeah, they've got a lot of changes to make. Cool. The conversation about that is whether a team is going to pay or take on the 128 million.
Yeah.
It's 128 million. So yeah, I mean, I think the most likely situation is that Draymond Green actually ends up taking a bag somewhere else. Because I think that a team might pay him too much. I think a team might pay him $100 million contract. Because I do think he has a lot of untapped scoring and shooting potential. Whether people think that that's funny or not, he could score. He just doesn't. He is Draymond Green as we know him because of Golden State. So is Curry. So is Clay. So are all those guys. But his role has been, I am Draymond Green. He's changed the league, whether people like to admit it or not, based off of the dribble handoff stuff that he's done with Curry and Clay. And Draymond Green was, probably the big that started doing that more than anybody else. So he's going to get paid, basically, is all I'm saying. He's going to get paid. A team is going to want to pay him in order for him to do that, and maybe for him to teach other bigs to do that on their squad. He's going to be a hot commodity. I genuinely believe that. So I don't know if the Warriors bring him back. If they do, they'll keep this dynasty going for a couple more years. But the truth is, the dynasty is going to end soon, whether it doesn't end next year. Curry's probably going to be around. I don't think that they're ever going to trade Curry. Maybe to Charlotte. But yeah, I mean, it's going to end soon, and I think that once we're able to step away from it and then it's over, we'll be able to maybe analyze some of the decisions that they've made over this dynasty because it's been pretty flawed.
Oh, wait. Sorry, I didn't hear what you just said there. You were like glitching out.
It's been pretty historic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
No. You're good. But yeah, like I don't know. I think Draymond's definitely going to get paid. Someone's going to give him money. I think his 3-point shot has gotten, it's looks more smooth now than it did like in the later KD Warriors years and maybe like that first year when everyone was injured and it was just him. Um, so I will give him that, and maybe he could help out a lot of teams in that regard as well. But uh, yeah, I don't know. You got any other thoughts? Like you wanted
Yeah,
to?
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
It was
My
it was just a glitch, I think, or something.
Yeah, I thought it was about to die. Um, yeah, basically what I was saying is that, you know, the lottery picks that they ended up acquiring throughout that process, they had that pick that they took Wiseman with,
Hmm.
they had the pick that they took Kuminga with, and the pick that they took Moody with. I mean, that was just ridiculous. To be the Warriors, and to have the opportunity to take LaMelo Ball or Franz Wagner, and they didn't do that.
Hmm.
Um, they went with the safe option. I felt like every time, except maybe Kuminga. I think Wiseman was genuinely looked at as a safe option. It's like, oh, this is a generational big that we could put here and do some things around the guys that we already have, which made sense. Um, Wiseman's in Detroit right now. We'll see how it pans out. I'm rooting for him, but that was a bad pick,
Yeah.
and I even think that the Kuminga pick was probably a bad pick. Um, when you look at, I think Franz, if you put Franz in that lineup, it would explode it. Um, I'm really excited about Orlando's future with Franz. Um, and Moody's great. I think Moody's going to end up getting shipped as well, though.
Yeah.
Um, they're going to have to rebuild something there, and I don't think that they're super comfortable rebuilding it with what they already have. I think that they're going to have to go the route that a lot of teams go when their dynasties are over, just completely rebuild
Yeah.
and accumulate draft assets. And it's going to be weird for the Warriors to have to do that, but I think we're going to have to start talking about that happening soon. Um, on the
Yeah.
flip side, with the Lakers, uh, they didn't have a lot of draft capital at all because they're the Los Angeles Lakers. They trade everybody all the time. Um, and they're also a LeBron team, so they do that as well. But Palinka, I think, deserves a lot of credit. Uh, I think this was distinctively a front office deadline versus a LeBron deadline. I think that throughout his career, there have been some deadlines where it's like, oh, we're bringing. Uh, I was gonna try and pull a weird friend, Mario Chalmers. We're bringing Mario Chalmers over. That's awesome. Or we're bringing specifically LeBron's friends.
Yeah.
Um,
Tristan Thompson.
I think LeBron's in a point that he is on the team,
Hmm.
and he did play in the last game toward the end. It was weird to see Tristan Thompson on a basketball floor um, in America. I could see him maybe playing overseas, but yeah, yeah, it was a really masterful job by Palinka, and it's weird to say that because I'm not like a Lakers do or die guy. Um, but it was just really well done. The deal that they did with Minnesota. Um, Malik Beasley was a really good player. He's not really playing a lot for them, but that was probably the piece that they got that they haven't utilized, uh, that they utilized at least. And he was a guy that was averaging um, decently close to 20 a game. I think he was maybe more around the 15, 14 range, but he was shooting pretty good. Shot a high volume from three. Vanderbilt was probably my favorite piece that they got other than D'Lo. Um, you know, day of, I was like, oh my gosh, they just got one of the best defenders in the league. Um, and I think he's gonna, if they're smart, he'll be there for a while. Um, because I mean, he was a league pass player that probably a lot of basketball fans didn't know a ton about or hadn't seen a ton. Um, but I think he's an elite defender. He
Mm.
does some things that are very nuanced uh, on the floor that you can't expect a lot of guys to be able to do for you. Like he has a defending style that kind of reminds me of Matisse Thybulle a little bit, with more length, where he'll kind of like move back and forth on defense. Sometimes he'll like play defense behind an offensive player and kind of utilize his wingspan, and utilize angles to like still get a deflection or a block on somebody, or like guard a player from behind, making them uncomfortable, feeling their presence still, but being guarded in an unorthodox way that not a lot of defenders are often guarding them, and in return, you know, actually playing solid defense behind a player. Like he just does, and his block numbers are high, his deflection numbers are huge.
Hmm.
I knew that he was going to be a huge, and of course, what we've seen, he could switch on the guards. So we'll see kind of what his role is in the series against Denver. And also, just the Lakers, they get a lot of fouls.
Yeah.
They Austin Reeves, I love Austin Reeves. Um, I think for how young he is in the league, he's exceptional and cognizant of the fact that he gets his team to the line. It's a skill. And Schroeder does it as well. Schroeder's really good at getting to the line. And
Hmm.
these are bench guys or role guys at best for this squad that do it every night, do it consistently. We know that Braun's going to get to the line. We know that Anthony Davis is going to get to the line. You know, and those statistics show they get the most fouls in the league.
Yeah,
Um,
by a long shot. But
yeah,
yeah. I don't know though if you wanna progress here though to the because we have another series to talk about. I know we talked about that one for a while, but if you want to talk though
yes.
about the Knicks Heat that just
Mhm.
transpired, maybe not as entertaining as the last two we talked about, but what'd you see from this series?
Um, well, I think I saw two tiers of teams.
Yeah.
Um, and it's weird to say that, um, with Miami being as lackluster as they felt throughout the regular season. But it was a team with a superstar, and it was a team kind of without one. And that's kind of just how the series felt. I never really felt. I can keep this short and brief.
Mm,
I like the Knicks actually. I'm a Pacers fan, but I like the Knicks. I appreciate the Knicks for the tenacity, the toughness that they bring. I love a few players on that team. I'm happy for Brunson, and I'm happy for Hart that he found a place that people love him.
hmm.
Uh, but they didn't have the juice. Um, they they were going to count on Brunson, and they were going to count on Randall, whether they were going to die by that or not. And I think they kind of did.
Hmm.
Uh, and Miami is rolling off of this series that they just accomplished after Milwaukee, and I don't think anybody was really surprised that they came out of that series. Because Jimmy doesn't really need to do 50 every night. The rest of the squad is pretty solid, and they've got some playoff pedigree. Kyle Lowry steps up, with some scoring, makes some tough shots, is aggressively driving to the rim and trying to get shots up, which is something that you don't always see from Kyle. Uh, so it's encouraging to see. Gabe Vincent has had a pretty good surge. Duncan Robinson is in the rotation, and he's shooting pretty well. I don't know the exact splits, but I think it's over 40 in the playoffs so far. I think it's maybe close to 50 from three, um, and I think that that's great for Miami. I'm probably the biggest Duncan Robinson fan in the world, so
Yeah.
I genuinely think that if you play Duncan, he's going to shoot shots, and he's going to end up making shots. He's a shooter. That's what you're paying him for. And they desperately needed shooting for many portions of the season. So I think it's good to have him back in the rotation. He might be in the rotation thanks to Tyler Hero being hurt. But I just think it's good that you don't have guys sitting at the end of the bench. I think that Miami culture is thriving right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing them. I don't have any big predictions yet about what's going to happen in that series, but I am excited to see both of those teams. I enjoy both of those teams.
Yeah.
And it's a rematch as well between Miami and Boston. I think that this is the third time that they've played in the conference finals in the last 4 years or 5 years. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, last 4 years, yeah.
Yeah, pretty wild. So, especially given the route that Miami's had to go. So I don't know. I think I saw something that Miami has a 3% chance
Yeah.
to win this. I don't believe that at all. Um, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think that we're going to have to see the way this series starts. So
Yeah.
so yeah,
I mean, I would probably, I mean, personally for me, I would probably favor Boston, but I still think like there's a decent chance for Miami. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
this
yeah.
this team last year, um, you know, I know they were the one seed and everything like that, but it didn't feel like they were. Maybe it felt like they were more together on the court last year, but now it seems like they're starting to get that back together again, and that's why it's making them a scary 8 seed. But I think they also enjoy like playing around each other more. It feels like this year than even last year. And you bring in other veterans like, I mean, Kyle Lowry. I feel like he's looked better so far in this playoffs than he did last year. You bring in Kevin Love, so
Kevin Love,
you get like other guys in the mix that have experience too, and
Cody Zeller.
Cody Zeller too. Yeah, so IU legend. But yeah, so I think it did feel like a tier two or two different tiers of teams, and it's weird to say because you would never think like I've never. I mean, it's got to be a really rare case, but it's pretty rare to think that like I would be disappointed if the 8 seed lost a series, and if the Heat lost the series to the Knicks, I would have been disappointed in the Heat because they felt like the favorites to win this series, and that's just what they did. They took care of business. I mean, arguably, you could argue that maybe they could have swept them if Game Two didn't miss a few calls down the stretch of that game. But again, that's the officiating. We're gonna leave that. We're gonna leave that aside. But yeah. So it just felt like the Knicks. Like I'm interested to see what route they take this offseason because, I mean, Jalen Brunson had a great postseason, and I've said all year long that even though Randall got acknowledged as an All-Star, even though Randall got acknowledged as All-NBA, I don't think he's their best player. I think Jalen Brunson is their best player, and I feel like the playoffs kind of solidified that he is their best player. So if they want to go a different route with maybe making a move and getting rid of Randall, or if they want to add something around there, like I've seen these Randall for Karl Anthony Towns rumors. I don't know if that's the answer, but like at least maybe make a decision that's best suited for okay, what's a good complement to Jalen Brunson? How is this going to work come postseason time with these guys? Obviously, you got Josh Hart alongside Brunson. I think that's a good addition that they got at the trade deadline. But overall, I mean, Miami just looked like a better team, even without Tyler Hero, even without Victor Oladipo. Like they just looked like a better team. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play against Boston because one thing about Boston is that like they do have these lapses. I feel like where
Yeah,
they'll throw away a game that they should
yeah.
have every single series. I mean, it's no fluke that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they've been to like 6 or 7 game sevens, and they're so young, right? Because they always
Hmm.
they extend series longer than they probably need to be. So I feel like they're gonna at least throw one game, maybe two. Like they're just not gonna have a great showing, and that's why the 3% seems really really low. Because I would probably say, like I said, I would still favor Boston. They won last year, and now in this case they do have home court advantage. Last year they didn't, so I would probably give them like a 70% chance or something like that. But I mean that's probably like assuming if you do the math, that's probably like a 4-2 series win roughly. And it could
Yeah,
even go 7. Like, I mean,
I,
you. Oh,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I think that um, it's a similar series that it was in the first round for Miami. You're playing a similar caliber team with a lot of firepower.
Mhm.
Um, Boston just throws a lot at you. They've got probably three of the top 30 guards. with Jaylen Brown, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White. I
Hmm.
mean, those guys would be in the starting rotation anywhere else. Um, there are a few teams that are probably loaded, but like those guys are it's a lot. They have a
Hmm.
lot of depth. Um, the team that New York that they just played, they had Deuce McBride coming off the bench. Boston doesn't have that,
Yeah.
and so um, it's going to be a similar series. It's going to take a similar type of string of performances from Jimmy Butler. Is basically what I'm getting to for Miami to come out. I just they've got two stars and a lot of really solid players over there. And they've got players that have been there. Al Horford, they've got players that look, they got their work cut out for them. I really like Miami. I like the energy that they're coming in with, and they're shooting the ball pretty well. They're shooting the ball from three really well. Boston shooting has been the thing that they've kept teams in with, is because they have lapses where they forget how to shoot. Um,
One thing I will say too is that I mean the game seven with Boston Philly did come directly after the Warriors got eliminated, who obviously beat them last year in the finals. So maybe now they think the Warriors are gone. Maybe they think this is theirs for the taking, and we'll see if maybe they flip the switch consistently. But I don't know. What were you gonna say though?
I don't remember. If it
My
ends up being
bad.
Boston, if it ends up being Boston and Los Angeles, um, I think they got to be a little more disciplined with that feeling, because I just
Mhm.
Anthony Davis on Al Horford, man, it's not good for my bro in Boston.
Yeah. There's no
I
good. There's no good. I feel like single matchup for AD. No matter who it is. Like I honestly like Embiid probably would have been the best bet if the Sixers moved on,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
yeah, because AD's a five now,
Yeah.
and I think that he always should have been for the Lakers. I think that there was a time earlier where he was kind of reluctant to be a five, and he
Mm.
probably should have been for them. And Brown had to play five for a little bit. It's like, bro,
Yeah.
you just got to move over there because you're going to be dominant. And he has been ever since. It's a matchup nightmare. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. Jokic on AD. I think I'll say this real quick. Sorry,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
because that series is about to happen,
Mm.
and it's going to be two elite bigs against each other. I'm really excited. But Jokic, he's not super elusive. He's not, super twitchy. I think we know that.
Mm.
His wingspan is huge, man. And I think a lot. It's hard to kind of see that on screen. But I think I actually heard that on a podcast with a player kind of talking about how Jokic is able to do the things that he does. And he kind of anticipates angles. He's a really good rebounder. There's more of an art for him about it, that's kind of hard to see in real time. So I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think he's necessarily going to get overpowered, basically, by the verticality of AD or the athleticism. I think that they're going to be a lot of people falling on the ground. I think Jokic is a little more consistent with that. He stays on the floor. So it'll be interesting. I hope that AD is healthy. I hope that AD is on the floor. But Jokic is a big boy. It's going to be a physical matchup.
Yeah.
That's the counter argument to every matchup being hard for other people. I think this matchup's going to be hard for AD. Maybe even more so than it would be with Joel. Just because Joel, he takes breaks,
Yeah.
um, and I'm not saying that he shouldn't, um, but Jokic does that less. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be.
The last thing I'll say about just these four teams in general, I will say, is that I don't think anyone can consider Udonis Haslam's farewell season a failure at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even though it felt like it most of the year, but fact that they're here, it's insane. But if you want though, we can move on here to something I'm sure you're interested in talking about, and that is with the NBA draft lottery coming up tomorrow. Obviously, the big fish in all this is Victor Wembanyama. You know, top three projected at the first overall pick are the Pistons, the Rockets, and Spurs. We got your Pacers at 7th. We got my Bulls at 11th, but they're only going to keep their pick if it's top 4, so we need like a miracle. I mean, there's other notable teams in here, like Portland is 5th with Dame. Dallas is 10th if they stay top 10. You got Toronto and New Orleans are at the bottom. It would take a miracle, but like, what do you? I guess do you have like a prediction? What do you think might happen for the lottery? And then do you think there's other players that might? You know, obviously everyone's talking about Victor, and some people are talking about Scoot as well. But are there any other players that you think might, whether they're in the lottery, maybe just outside the lottery or somewhere around there, that maybe people should be paying more attention to as well?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily have a prediction on how the lottery is going to happen.
Yeah, I was just why not or anything.
Yeah, I don't even want to announce or jinx that. Um, but yeah, I'll get it out of the way. Pacers have the seventh best odds. The team that has the pre-lottery position of 7 in the last 5 seasons has jumped from either 4. I mean, it's into the top 4. The last 3 seasons, it's been picked 4. New Orleans had it the year before that, got picked 3 or 2. Yeah, it's a lucky number. It's a lucky position. I'm hoping that I don't jinx it, but I'm looking forward to hopefully jumping into the top 5 because the top 5 this year is elite.
Mm.
There will be some people that'll tell you that it's more of a top 3 or a top 2 or a top 4. It's a really good class. I could tell you that with full confidence. Victor Wembanyama, he's going to be amazing. I would love to have that first pick. Everybody that gets that first pick is going to take Victor Wembanyama. You could say anything about him. He could do just about everything. There are not very many limitations to his game, and he's 7'5". So don't need to spend a whole lot of time on him. He's going to get taken number 1. Any team that gets him is ridiculously lucky. And then at 2, Scoot Henderson out of the G League, I think he would be a number 1 pick in most drafts. I genuinely believe that. I think he might have even went number 1 last year.
Probably, yeah.
You got all those bigs that nobody really, I think he would have been that guy that just would have saved the headache for all those GMs at number 1, where it's like, oh, we know what we're getting out of this guy, and we do know what we're getting out of Scoot. He was incredible in the G League. He was a 17-year-old in his first year in the G League, and he was a lot better than I think anybody expected. He's just a go-getter, man. He really does a lot on the defensive end as well. Brandon Miller, obviously some controversy early in the year. I don't know if everybody's kind of aware of that, but he was involved in I don't know. It's hard to explain. He was a participant potentially in an investigation that involved the death of a student at Alabama University. He was potentially involved in aiding the potential suspect with a weapon and transporting that to the suspect. He was suspended for a brief amount of time. Nate Oates the coach at Alabama was contemplating whether he wanted to keep him on the roster. Obviously, he's the best player in college basketball. The guy's going to make sure that he has him for the postseason. And they rocked with him, and he had a shaky last game in the tournament, but all things considered, he exhibited all the skills and intangibles that I think make him a top 5 pick. He is a 6'9" wing that has a really effortless form and has proven that he's a 3-level scorer. And he's proven that at 6'9" at the wing that he can guard, 3 to 4 positions in the league. And is switchable, and there's room to grow on the defensive end, but he's not necessarily a liability. He could really score effortlessly, and so at his size, he's going to go top 5. And I think Amen Thompson right now for me is higher on my board than Brandon Miller. I have him at 3. because he's maybe the most athletic player that I've ever seen come into the NBA.
Hmm.
If you are unfamiliar with Amen Thompson, you've never seen him play, I would go watch a highlight tape of his, because it's I don't know, it's hard to miss on guys that are you train them in a different sport and they'd be elite because of their athleticism. Like I think if Amen Thompson was doing long jump, Amen Thompson would be an Olympian.
Hmm.
He's just got that .001 in him. And so I think that that's going to translate. There are some worries about how he was playing in the overtime elite, or yeah, he was playing in the overtime system, which has 16 and 17-year-olds. They were both 20. It's an unproven league. It's a new league. The competition, people are, and for obvious reason, I watch some of those overtime games when I'm prepping on these guys, and I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm watching. I'm watching a basketball game. I'm watching these guys play, but I don't really know what I'm watching compared to what I'm watching when I'm watching Brandon play a college game, or when I'm watching, what I'm saying. I'm watching
Hmm.
Victor play overseas. I don't really know what overtime elite is yet. Um, and so I think that this is a big draft for the overtime elite. I think this is a big draft for these Thompson brothers because GMs are going to have to make a decision that what they saw is enough. Um, but I just think if you guys watch some of the stuff that they're able to do, the freedom that they have, I think is was beneficial to them uh, this season because it allowed them to do anything that they could possibly imagine, and I think that they have some of the best imaginations on the court
Yeah.
based off of the way that they play. Um, and I think that that's really healthy to add to a team in today's NBA is having a player with a deep bag and a vast imagination on the court, and the athleticism that he provides. And so I think Amen's going to be a top four pick. I think Brandon's going to be a top four pick. And then after that, it really opens up. After
Hmm.
that top four, you've got Taylor Hendricks from UCF. You've got Jarris Walker from Houston. Um, you've got Grady Dick from Kansas. It really just like Anthony Black, who's a 6'8" guard from Arkansas. I mean, it's really just team need after that. But I really do think that there are some really talented players in those bottom tier or in those later tiers. But I do think that there's a fall off at
Hmm.
at five, maybe even four,
Hmm.
and then after Taylor Hendricks and after Jarris Walker, there's not a lot of bigs in this draft. So if you're a team that's thinking we got to go out in this draft and we got to draft a big, there's probably about three or four, to be honest with you, and a couple of them are international prospects that we don't know much about. It's not a very
Yeah.
deep draft when it comes to bigs. And then after that, I mean, you've got Kalkbrenner out of Creighton, uh, Zach Edey. You've got your like big, you know, very traditional bigs that I don't know if they really have a future in the NBA, but I think that they're going to get looked at later in the second round. And Trace Jackson Davis, IU brethren, he's going to go potentially in the first round, and I don't think their team would be mistaken to be able to do that. I think people in Indiana know what Trace provides. Um, just ridiculously athletic. One of those guys that is also in the .001, and I think that that's going to make his way on the floor because he was asked to do a lot at IU. Um, he did a lot at IU, but he became a pretty decent playmaker that kind of differentiates himself from the other prospects because of that. Because he's going to be asked to do some of those things, maybe off a bench unit. Um, so there's talk about the Pacers being interested, snagging him with one of their high second rounds, or we Pacers have 3 picks in the first round. It'd be cool to keep him home,
Yeah.
and we definitely need the big. So
I think
yeah,
I don't I mean, yeah, I don't have too much to add really like from what you said, but I mean, the obvious thing is people are going to look at this draft and they're going to think, well, we need Victor Wembanyama because he's the highest hyped prospect essentially since LeBron, right? Like that's basically what they've been calling him. So the fact that you could get your hands on someone like that could change not just the outlook of your future. It could change like NBA history essentially, assuming he stays healthy. And honestly, like you could almost say the same thing like you said about Scoot, and that's why I do think they'll go 1 and 2 in that way. But I mean, there are other people, especially in this lottery, that it could be nice, like Brandon Miller or the Thompson brothers. I probably would say Amon's better of the two, but I mean, both of them are definitely solid picks. Anthony Black, like you said, like that's an interesting choice just because like he's a taller point guard, and we've seen some taller point guards like the way that their jump shot transitions into the NBA. Sometimes it could be a struggle, and whether that's for ambiguous things that happen, like if it was Markelle Fultz or something, he had a pinched nerve in his shoulder, or if it was just a Ben Simmons or a Michael Carter Williams or whoever it may be, like for push comes to shove or whatever, like there's been instances where that has been an issue, and so that would be kind of the interesting part is if he's able to transition that in the NBA as well. Then that would be great because you see the other side of things. Like we were just talking about the Lakers, like with Austin Reeves, he was a terrible three-point shooter in college. Come now, like he's probably was the most efficient player on the Lakers this season from all levels. So you got that as well. And then also like, Jordan Hawkins just boosted his draft stock. I'm surprised. Like I was looking at a mock draft recently and they had Nick Smith a little bit lower. I still feel like he could contribute at a lottery pick level. I was kind of surprised to see that because I think he has a lot of those intangibles too. And then, of course, like you still got guys like, I mean, you were even talking about players who maybe were highest prospects in their high school draft class. And I mean, maybe there still is a glimmer of hope for that for Amani Bates, because we've seen that like with Michael Porter Jr. in the past. I know he's not projected high in this one, but I'm sure someone is going. Yeah, someone's probably going to take a gamble on that, but we'll see. I don't know. As for your Pacers, and I didn't even mention Jarris Walker, who I think that's definitely one of the players that like would benefit a lot of teams too, but he might be a good fit in Indiana. I mean, like I'm trying to think like the Pacers I feel like could use a power forward because I know you guys have had like Isaiah Jackson there. You had Terry Taylor there for a while, but like I think he's on the Bulls now. Like
we signed Jalen Smith.
Jalen Smith as well. But like me personally, Jalen Smith has been nice. I just think we're drafting 4. If we get in the top 3, then we're not. But if we're at 7, we're likely to get a pick around there. Mm-hmm.
And we're probably going to draft either Taylor Hendricks or Jarris Walker, depending on who's available and who they like more. We have a huge void there at the 4. So I'm fully anticipating that. But fingers crossed that we're able to leap on that board because it would be generational. And I think every spot is more valuable than the next. That might sound obvious, but I genuinely think that like being able to get Scoot over getting Brandon is a huge, upgrade. And there are team needs, there are team fits. There will be teams that draft based off of what they need. But I think, especially at the top of this draft, teams will be drafting the best available because these players, they're pretty impactful.
Yeah,
it'll be exciting.
I did see like I guess my Bulls have the same odds to get the first pick as they did when we got D Rose. Can't see him because my camera's weird. D Rose in 2008. So that's I guess my hope. Not very much though, but I think it would be interesting if. I'm really interested to see how this plays out because it always feels like I'm not going to say the draft lottery is rigged, but it always feels like it's something it was like the first pick was necessary for this team. And I'm looking
Mhm.
at the Damian Lillard situation right now at Portland, and they have like a 10% chance of getting the first pick. If they got Wembenyama, I'm not. I wonder what would just happen there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
want him. There are some teams that I'm kind of rooting on other than Indy. I'm kind of hoping that he falls to Charlotte.
mm,
I think he'd unlock LaMelo in a way that would be really awesome. And I think that they would work well together. It would also kind of fill the void that they had from Miles Bridges leaving. They kind of have lost their identity.
yeah,
Uh, but I think that would save them a little bit. And everybody wants San Antonio, or it kind of felt like everybody was kind of leaning on San Antonio because it just made sense. Places Tim Duncan's void in San Antonio and gives Popovich a superstar to work with to end his career. I think that that would be it'd be okay. I
mm,
don't think he'd hate being in San Antonio. The only problem is San Antonio literally has nothing to be excited about. Keldon Johnson was their number one guy.
yeah,
I mean, that's pretty tough, man. They don't have a whole lot to get excited about. So the teams that are up there desperately need a change of tide. Um, so yeah, I hope it's one of those more exciting teams that already kind of has something to work, like gives Victor a pick and roll
mm.
maybe guy. Like I think Lamelo would be the perfect one. What are some of those other teams that are up there? I know
I mean, there's Houston and Detroit, but I don't know if I even want him honestly in either of those places. Just because like they've
Detroit would
been,
be great.
it would be great. I just feel like they've been there. They've been so low for so long. You know, like they got Cade and then they got Jaden Ivey. So it's like
Yeah,
how many young guys is it gonna take? That's I guess like the thing, or how many like great picks is it gonna take is my thing. So like I would like him in Charlotte or San Antonio essentially, even just for the sake of it's something new maybe. But I also like I said I would like him in Portland. I'd like him in Indiana. One because I think it'd be nice to see him in Halliburton, and two because I could go to a lot of his games. So yeah,
it'd
but
be unbelievable.
yeah. I don't know if I'd, even though I love the Magic's core, I don't know if I'd want him in Orlando just because, like, I feel like they already have something, like, set. They just need to be healthy. You know what I mean? Like,
Victor is going to be amazing no
mm,
matter where he goes. And so any of these teams are going to greatly improve.
right.
And so Orlando would be awesome. You
Mm,
put Victor Wembanyama with Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner and Markel Fultz and Cole
Wendell
Anthony.
Carter and,
I mean, they'd be awesome. And I think you put him in Washington. Now you've got a 7'5" giant that can handle the ball with Bradley Beal.
and
Um,
you already have Porzingis, too. So it's like,
yeah, yeah, I already have Porzingis. I mean, he could literally go anywhere, and we're going to be excited about what we're talking about. So
yeah.
that's what's it's even different from Braun because Braun, um, you know, Braun was more of a, a wing or a guard or an initiator.
Mm,
We don't really know with Vic, like he could be, but he's a giant, and so like, oh man,
yeah.
it's gonna be fun, man.
It's gonna be great. And it's definitely gonna be the storyline tomorrow, or today when this comes out. Even over a playoff game, which is that says a lot. But I don't know if you want though, we can move on to the
Yeah,
mini game at the end. So I'll explain how it works. This is called the NBA Situation Game. So basically, this mini game it's going to represent NBA situations as they happen, with revealing elements such as like I'd give you stuff like the time on the clock when the moment happened, the year it happened, whether it was a home or away game, regular season or playoffs, and then what type of shot it was, to allow you to guess it. Now, every time I start out, I'm going to give you the two teams that were involved. And if you guess it correctly after I give you the two teams involved, then you'll get 5 points. But if it takes you one question or one hint and you get it, that's 4 points. Two, then it's 3 points. And it keeps going from there until you're out of points. But other than that, I mean, basically it though. So, or actually, my fault. I said that wrong. So I'll give you the two teams. If you guess it right, just off the two teams that were involved, you'll get 10 points. And if you use one hint, that's 5 points. 2 hints, that's 4 points. 3 hints, that's 3 points until you're out of hints, essentially.
Okay.
So pretty simple. I feel like the first one might be it's a pretty household moment, but we'll see. So are you ready for the first one?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guess it right after getting the two teams, again, you get 10 points. So the two teams involved, and this could be a current moment, it could be a former moment, anything. The two teams involved were the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz.
Jordan's shot.
Are you guessing the last shot in Game 6?
Yeah,
That is correct. It is that. So that one probably was an easier one. Easy 10 points right there. Some of them are going to get harder, but not too shabby. And then if you would have missed it, I would have given you like the time on the clock and what quarter it was, and then the year, and it goes from there. So are you ready though for the second one? The second one might also be easy, but I can assure you the third one is going to be difficult. But are you ready for the second one?
Yeah.
So these two teams are the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Portland Trail Blazers.
Dame's shot on PG.
It is, yes. Okay, so easy, quick 20 points right there. So now these last three going to be a little bit tougher, but we'll see. So are you ready for the third one?
Yes.
This one might actually be the hardest of them all. So the third one is the Houston Rockets and the Los Angeles Clippers.
Okay.
And you can make a guess after every hint. You're allowed one guess after every hint. If you don't know, you could just ask for the next hint.
Okay. Was it within the last decade?
I cannot reveal because that's one of the hints that comes later on. So I can't give you like any yes or no hints. You just gotta think think about it.
I just gotta guess.
You can guess if you want, or you could ask for the next hint. There is a hint later on that tells like what year it is. Oh, sorry, what'd you say?
Yeah, I'll ask for a hint.
Okay, so the first hint is this happened with 1 minute and 18 seconds left in the first quarter. So you know it's not a game winner, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have no idea.
So do you want the next hint?
Yeah.
Okay, so this happened in 2018.
Okay.
So that one might be useful. Yeah.
Was it DeAndre Jordan? Was it a Monster Jam?
It was not a Monster Jam. No, and it was not DeAndre Jordan. No. Okay, so the third hint is this was a Clippers home game. So it was Houston Rockets at the LA Clippers. Again, in 2018, first quarter.
Okay. Was it man, I don't know. I'm just gonna be guessing, to be honest. So
that's
fine. Was it Blake Griffin?
It was not a Blake Griffin move, no.
Okay.
So the fourth hint, it was the regular season, I guess. They didn't play in the playoffs that year anyways, but tells you that it was the regular season.
I don't know, man.
You could ask for the next hint if you don't know, but
yeah, was it?
The last hint might be the most useful.
Okay.
So do you want the last hint?
Yeah.
Okay, so the last hint was it was a 3-pointer to make the score 31-7. So a wipeout game. And I'll give you another hint with this. The 31 points was for Houston. So they were up 31-7.
Okay. Oh, did James Harden cross over Wesley Johnson or something?
That was it. Yep, it is the James Harden crossover on Wesley Johnson. Good job.
Sweet.
Nice. So that is you you did get a point there, pretty solid. So you got 21 right now. The fourth one, this one's gonna be a bit of a throwback. This one will also be hard. I think the fifth one might be easier than these last two. But are you ready for the fourth one?
Yeah.
All right. So the two teams involved were the San Antonio Spurs and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay. Okay. It's probably regular season because it's an Eastern Conference team versus a Western Conference team. And if it's not, then it's the freaking finals. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
So you want the next hint?
Yeah.
Okay, so this happened. Don't know how much this will help you. I think the second hint is always the most useful, but this happened with 6:42 left in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
Nothing. Okay, so the next hint, it happened. This one will be tough. It's the oldest one, 1979.
Oh.
So this is a while ago.
So let me think. So Charles Barkley might have been on the Sixers. For the Spurs, it might have been like Artist freaking Gilmore. And yeah, I have no idea. Dr. J. It might have. Was it Dr. J's reverse lay?
It is not that play, unfortunately. Okay, so the third hint is it was a Sixers home game. So San Antonio was at Philadelphia.
Okay. Was it Manute Bol's game where he made like 10 threes?
No, it is not that game. But okay, so the fourth one, it is the regular season, so you know it is not like the NBA Finals or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna stand up.
You're good. You're good.
Let me think. Was it Daryl Dawkins?
Yes. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. It is Daryl Dawkins. Do you know like what exact moment though, or no?
Probably a dunk.
It is a dunk. Yes. So the moment was he broke his second backboard in a span of 3 weeks. So yeah, and it made the score 110 to 99. That's pretty insane that you got that though. So
yeah, had to rack my brain.
Standing up helped you. Yeah, so you got 23 points right now. I do think the last one might be a little harder than the first two, but I think it's easier than these last two. So are you ready for the fifth one?
Yeah.
All right. So the two teams involved were the Los Angeles Lakers and the Philadelphia 76ers.
Okay. I'll take my first hint, honestly.
Okay, so this happened with 47.6 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter.
Lakers and the Sixers?
Lakers and Sixers, yeah.
Okay. Was it Magic's Skyhook?
It is not Magic Skyhook. So the next hint, this one might give it away. It happened in 2001.
Okay. Was it Kobe and Shaq? Shaq break a backboard?
It is not Shaq breaking a backboard. Okay, so the 3-point hint, it was a Lakers home game. So Philadelphia at LA.
It's got to be Kobe game clincher, right?
It is not a Kobe game clincher. So the 2-point hint, and remember, 2001 Lakers Sixers. This happened in the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a blind spot for me. I know that they won back-to-back years, but I don't necessarily know the play that ended it.
I'll give you another hint. So this playoff run, the Lakers went 15-1. So this is the only game they lost in that playoff run.
Yeah, they swept the Pacers in 4 and the year before too.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
was it Robert Horry?
it is not Robert Ory.
Okay.
So the last one, it was a step back jumper to make the score 103-99. And that was in favor of Philadelphia. So Philadelphia scored on this play. NBA Finals 2001.
Allen Iverson.
It is Allen Iverson over.
Yes.
Or do you know the play?
Over Tyronn Lue.
Yeah, yes, where he steps over Tyronn Lue. Yes. So nice job. You got that. You got 1 for that. You got 2 for the last one, 1 for the third one, and then you got 10 for the first 2. Overall, that's 24 points, which, hey, that's my favorite number. So that's solid. How do you think you did?
I feel like that was pretty good, man.
That
I feel
I
like
I think that was, yeah. Sorry, keep going.
I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good. I was surprised. It was incredible you got the James Harden crossover one, because a regular season moment might be forgotten, and then also, of course, the Daryl Dawkins one too. That's pretty insane.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. Shout out Dr. Dunk.
yeah, Chocolate Thunder, as they called him too. But yeah, so I mean, 24 points, pretty solid. Got to give you credit there. But other than that, I mean, appreciate you being on, talking about all the stuff with me. And hopefully you guys at home enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching. You got any other final thoughts before we close this thing out?
No, thanks for having me. I'd love to do it again and kind of dive into some other things potentially. And I had a good time, so thank you.
For sure, man. I'll have to get you back on. We'll have to collab again. Probably maybe we'll do something about the draft or something like that. We'll have to see. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you guys for watching, and we're out. Peace.